questions are. So today's presentation is going to be about what radon is, what radon does to people's health, how to test and fix radon, and then what the 100 test kit challenge is, because I'm assuming most of you are here because you're going to be able to access a free test kit because you're joining the Take Action on Radon challenge in your community. And Take Action is, we're really proud to be here this evening, and we unite members from across Canada, as I'd noted. And this includes many of the traditional territories of First Nations peoples, Métis and Inuit. And these people whose ancestral footsteps and rights extend really beyond the colonial boundaries of what we consider today. So we respectfully honor these people's rights, histories, and relationship with the land. And I am personally calling in from Coast Salish territory, which is the unceded lands of the Musqueam, Squamish, and Tsleil-Waututh peoples. So next slide, please. And just to let you know, this is being recorded, this session, and there will be a copy of the recording for people if you want to encourage others, if you know people who couldn't attend, wanted to attend, but there will be a copy. So if you've never heard about radon before, oh, hang on, before I begin, Blake, would you like to say hello, Blake?
Yes, my name is Blake Schwarzenschuber. I'm one of the public health inspectors on our health hazard team here at Southwestern Public Health. And yeah, we're very excited to be partnering with Take Action on Radon and get some testing done in the Southwestern Public Health area.
Fantastic. Nice to meet you, Blake, actually in person. And can I ask, where did you do your public health training? Because I work in BC with public health inspectors. So I'm always interested. Are you a West Coast transplant, or did you do your training in the East?
No, I kind of always grew up around Oxford County, and then I went to Conestoga here in kind of the Kitchener-Cambridge area.
So you're a local.
Happy to be local.
All right, excellent. Okay, so if people have never heard of radon gas before, you're actually in good company, because the federal government adds questions about radon to the census. So, you know, sometimes you'll have the census and then you have like the extended census. Well, if you're having to fill that out, there are questions on there about radon in the household and environment section. So every couple of years, they ask Canadians what they know about radon, and still less than 50% of Canadians can answer questions correctly about radon gas exposure. So if nothing else, when you leave here this evening, you will be able to ace that census question when it comes along. So radon gas is a radioactive gas. It's part of the decay chain of uranium, and Canada is a uranium-rich country. So we have uranium in soils all across the country. And radon gas exposure leads to the development of lung cancer. And it's actually the leading cause of lung cancer in non-smokers and the second cause of lung cancer in people who smoke. Next, please, Pam. So radon is given a designation as being a known human carcinogen in the world where we designate what is and is not carcinogenic. The International Agency for Research on Cancer, that's IARC, is considered the go-to organization for designating the health effects of things. And they, as well as the WHO and other international agencies like Health Canada and the EPA, all agree that this is a well-known, well-established human carcinogen. And chronic inhalation to radon gas causes lung cancer. And calculations that have been done on attributable risk over the last few years estimate that about 3,000, we're actually up to about 3,300 people die each year from radon-related lung cancer. So that's about 9 people a day. So this is not an insignificant health exposure. Next, please, Pam. And one of the key messages that we've been focusing on recently is that radon and smoking tobacco don't mix. So it's pretty clear that radon causes lung cancer when you're living in a high radon home. So if you look at this Health Canada publication where it says high radon only, your risk of developing lung cancer over time at elevated levels is about 1 in 20. And that's not a small number. We regulate risks of exposures far above 1 in 20. But for a smoker, it's about 1 in 3. So this is a significant increase. So this also is for both current and ever smokers. These numbers were estimated. So if people have taken the effort to quit smoking or to get tobacco out of their life, reducing radon is really the next thing that you can do to really protect your lung health. Next, please. And Canada is not alone in this encouraging of people with tobacco history to reduce their exposure to radon. The WHO has come at this problem mathematically from a different point of view, but in their estimation, people who smoke or have smoked are about 25 times more at risk from radon than non-smokers. And that's in part to do with the way that radon impacts the lungs as well as tobacco. So they kind of work together, unfortunately, to dramatically increase risk. Next, please. So where would you be exposed to radon? Well, people are mostly exposed from indoor air. Now, it's a soil gas and it can evaporate into the outdoor air. And when it is outdoors, radon is diluted and it's really much less of a problem. But over time, radon gas can seep into homes through cracks in the foundation and sidewalls, through gaps around fittings and pipes, or even side windows. And levels are generally higher in the basement and ground contact rooms. And that makes sense because the gas is going from a colder part of the ground. Gases do what they do naturally, which is they move from denser or colder areas to open, more warmer areas. So the gas is drawn basically inside the home. And over time, levels increase. And if they increase to above 200 becquerels per meters cubed, that's our Canadian guideline, that's when we're encouraging people to take action. Next, please, Pam. So what we found over time running this program, we're now in between the fifth and sixth year of running our Take Action on Radon program. But what we've tested all across the country, and we found that there's big differences in the rates of radon in different communities. But we've determined that almost every place that we've tested has had some homes with high levels. So your region, I don't know how much you know yet about the radon levels in your communities, but sometimes we have a high proportion of homes that are above 200, sometimes there's low, but there always are some. So there really is no part of Canada that is radon free. And then unfortunately, the only way to know if your home has radon in it is if you actually test for it. And that's why we're here. Next, please.
Blake, did you have a
Yeah, did you want to add something?
Yeah, I was just going to say that from what we know, some of the last data that we have, it's from a few years ago, like I think at least 8 years, but I think in Oxford County, it's about 11% of homes are above that 200 becquerels. And then in Elgin St. Thomas area, it's about 7.5%. So,
Oh, so
like
you're
you said,
seeing, yeah, that variability as well. I mean, it's not 90% usually. There are some parts
No.
of BC where we're seeing 60% of homes, but there are some areas of BC where there historically were going to be uranium mines. So unfortunately, we have some hot spots, but yeah, that's about the Canadian average is around 10-ish%. So yeah, thanks. And so where is radon exposure a problem? Well, you can be exposed pretty much any place that's indoors. So that includes homes. And in fact, Health Canada has crunched some numbers recently, and they really suggest that the majority of exposure that people have is from their home exposure. And most people are working from home now, or at least part-time working from home. So we really just increase the amount of time we're spending in our homes and increasing our radon levels. Schools are another place where people can be exposed. And some children we know spend a lot of time in schools, both with after and before school care as well. So it's really important that we reduce radon from school exposures. And here in British Columbia, we have some regions where they actually are testing all of the schools. I can't comment. Blake, you might know a bit more if the schools have been tested in your area.
I don't think so.
No,
we're not seeing widespread in Ontario, widespread school testing.
Yeah, PEI has done some school testing too. I've actually authored a report if people are interested in looking at it. But yeah, school testing and then daycare testing for me is the next great place because children are spending lots of time in those ground contact areas. Again, it's important to reduce radiation exposure as much as possible. So Health Canada does recommend that all buildings be tested, and there are guides for testing schools as well as homes. And then there's free guides for mitigating as well that are available on the internet. So how do you test for radon? And again, the only way to know is to test. There's lots of different ways, but tonight we're going to talk about the Alpha Track tests that we're providing to you, which are certified tests that we provide through our Take Action on Radon program. Next, please, Pam. So the devices that we're providing to you today are to be used for 91 days. And you may ask why so long? And if you have friends in the States, they'll tell you that they only test for a few days. And that is true, they do. But in Canada, we don't recommend only testing for a few days. And that's because radon levels fluctuate a lot over time. So I have a device in my house here on the West Coast, and theoretically, I'm supposed to have very little radon. And on average, that's true, but over the day, so sometimes the kids come and they look at the device and they go, hey, it's 78 today. So if we turn on the heater or if I open windows, I can really see on my digital device, the levels go up and down. So in Canada, we really want to know what average exposures are in people's homes over the winter heating season. And that's because we know that that's often when people have doors and windows closed because you don't want to be losing energy into the outdoors and your home's kind of tighter. So because of the fluctuations, we encourage people to have that test for 91 days. The tests that we're giving you they're a little sort of a square, just a bit smaller than a hockey puck. They don't have a digital display on it. And that's in part because the devices that we're providing you are nowhere near as expensive as the ones the digital fancy ones that we use in research labs and things. So just to confirm though, that these are tests that you're using thank you, Pam. They are very reliable. In fact, this is the most accurate way to test for radon. They are a one-time use though. Once you finish testing, they're done. They're sent off to a lab and then they're disposed of. And we follow quite clear quality assurance measures to confirm the accuracy of our test devices. So that means for you that some of you may actually receive 2 radon test kits when you sign up. And that's not because we want you to test somewhere else as well. It's because we're actually trying to make sure that those units continue to be consistent and accurate. So if you get 2, just put them both in the same place, and you're helping us make sure that our supplier provides us with accurate devices. So you put it in your house for 91 days, and then you send it back to the lab, and the lab will email you a report. And it'll have a number on it, somewhere greater than 15 and above. And that number represents the becquerels per meters cubed on average in your home. So right now in Canada, we recommend that if your level is above 200, that orange line there, you would want to start to reduce the radon levels in your home. But this isn't really like a black and white number. If your levels are 190, your risk is only slightly less than if it was 200. In fact, the World Health Organization suggests that 100 is actually the most important level. And that's because for every 100 becquerels, your risk of lung cancer increases by 16%. So when you start to get to 400, 500, and 600 becquerels, you're really increasing risk. So Health Canada actually really encourages people almost right away to be fixing their houses if it comes in at 600. And you might ask, how often does that happen? And again, it really depends. So we have some communities in British Columbia where homes are in the thousands, but that's not that common. And again, I can't speak to what the levels are in Ontario because I'm unfortunately less familiar with your province. So radon remediation comes in 2 recommendations at 200. Oh, for some reason I have balloons in my face, Pam. I'm not sure how that happened. At 200, you should make plans to fix your home within the next 2 years. But if it's above 600, we really should be getting on that right away. Okay, sorry, next, Pam. So the good news about radon remediation is that even if your level is really high, the same technique really effectively reduces exposure. And a radon mitigation system is the type of device or the type of system that will be put into your home to help reduce those levels. And this system has been designed for Canada, for the Canadian context and environment, so you can feel assured that the radon systems, and this is a radon system that will be put into a home, is the most effective way to reduce radon, and it works. And it's very simple to maintain. So in Ontario, I believe at the moment, you do not have a passive system built into a home. Is that correct, Blake? Sorry, Pam, we need to go
Yeah,
back.
I can talk to the building code a little
Okay,
bit,
please
but
do,
yeah.
if you want to.
Yeah. So as Anne-Marie's talked about, the radon mitigation system is the most effective way to reduce the levels, and it involves a piping system that goes down into the subslab space and provides a pathway for that gas to go up and out. And so the system is really simple. Once the pipe is in a location where it's going to be effective, a fan is added, and the fan is just large enough to move air through that piping system up and out. And so really the only maintenance that needs to be required is the replacement of the fan if it ever burns out. But the key to it is to ensure that it's properly installed. And so there is certified professionals across the country that you can call on to help you with installing it. And when they come in to fix it, what they'll do is they'll make sure that there's a good solid foundation. And so if you've got a concrete floor in your home, they'll make sure that it's well sealed. If you do have a crawl space with a poly liner, they can go in and they can install a membrane to make sure that provides a real foundation, well-sealed foundation. But it actually reduces levels to even really high levels to quite low. And so it's really effective. And so here's a couple pictures of what it looks like in place. And you can see that even it can be installed in out of the way locations in your basement so that if it's properly installed, like I said, it can draw air from the full footprint. So even off to the side in the home. And I just saw a timely question that came in about radon mitigation grants. And yes, there is. So we know about on average, the cost of mitigation across the country is about $3,000 to $5,000. It really depends on the complexity of the house. So we have done a bit of research and seen some averages. We have seen it increase a little bit over the last year, just as everything else has. But the price is more impacted by the complexity of the house. So maybe you have multiple foundations, or maybe a crawl space, or architecturally designed or whatever. So or a really large house that can impact the cost of the mitigation system. But there is a national grant that is available. So the Canadian Lung Association has a grant of $1,500 that you can apply if you qualify. And so you do need to apply using a long-term test. So Anne-Marie was talking about the difference between alpha track detectors and digital monitors. And so in order to apply for this project, you do need to use an alpha track like we're using in this program. So once you get the report, you want to keep that. And then you also will need to show either a confirmation of income. So it's for low to moderate income, or for people with a lung cancer diagnosis. And then you also need to get a quote from a certified professional. And so you need to submit this before getting the mitigation done and have it approved before proceeding with the mitigation. But it's worth $1,500. So it is worth kind of jumping through the hoops to help with the cost of mitigation. The other thing to note, which I didn't put a slide in, but there are some renovation programs in Ontario. I think it's called the SHAPE program, or it's a seniors renovation program. And so you might want to look in your area if there are some renovation projects that help with supporting low income. You may be able to apply for them. I've been able to find some in Ontario, but I've kind of had to go region by region and apply and ask questions. So if you know some of the renovation support programs in your area, you can also ask them, and if they need additional support, you can reach out to us and we can help with answering their questions to see if mitigation would qualify. And so we do have a national certification program. So if you do get your report and you have high levels and you need to reduce, there is a website. CNRPP has a list of professionals. We do have a couple in your area. And so you can call on them to help you with reducing your construction or your existing home. And then there are also some regions in Ontario with radon in the building code. So it's actually part of the national building code, but Ontario is on their own building code. And so it's currently until I think it's supposed to harmonize next year with the national building code. But right now, the Ontario building code applies if a municipality declares or has found that there are high radon levels or a problem in their area, then they can bring in measures into their local building code. And so I believe that St. Thomas and Elgin have brought it in. I was trying to find the exact link to the webpage. I know they were looking into it. And so I'm not sure if it's all the way brought through. So I think it may apply for some of the areas that we're covering in the health region, but I'm not sure yet if it applies for all. But next year it will be part of the building code. And so the what it has typically looked in the Ontario regions when they brought it in is it's 3 option system. And so these are sort of the 3 options that builders can do. And so one thing that we want to kind of draw your attention to is if your home has been built in the last couple of years, and if it is on this new building code option, you may have a rough-in pipe, or you may have possibly even an extended pipe, just depending on your builder. Because I know there are some programs that are aware in, or some builders that are really super keen and aware of radon in the area. You still need to test to make sure that it's effective to determine if you need the fan. So just keep that in mind if you notice that there is some piping in your home with respect to radon. And then there is also the Terrian warranty program. So if your home has been built in the last 7 years, radon is covered by the Terrian warranty. And so you can apply for full mitigation coverage through the builder or through the Terrian warranty. Again, you do need a long-term test. And this program will give you that report for you. So make sure that you, watch for that email. We'll talk about how you'll get the report at the end of the testing project, but you can use that as the warranty. If your home is coming up close to the 7 years, you may want to reach out to Terrian and just check on that date. Because it's a 3-month testing process and they understand this process, I believe if you have a conversation with them, you can provide some information about the fact that you're starting your test. So you might want to reach out to Terrian warranty if you're getting close to that 7-year period.
Pam, can I just confirm that Terrian is Tarion?
Correct. Yeah, the Terrian warranty.
Terrian.
Yeah, which covers all new homes in Ontario. Yeah.
Okay, I put the spelling in the chat.
Okay. Perfect. Good. Okay, so we'll jump in now to details about the 100 Test Kit Challenge and more specific details on sort of walking through the test process for you. So as Anne-Marie mentioned, you'll get a detector and so it will come in an envelope. You'll pick up the detector, inside are the instructions, you'll pick up the package, inside of the instructions and the detector. When you take it home, you'll put it in place, and then we need to connect you with your serial number on your detector. So the serial number, as you can see, is very clear on the actual little square detector itself. It's also on the envelope. So on the outside of the package, we have printed that as well for you there. And then when you can scan a QR code, or you can go to this website to complete your start form, and that we will need your the date that you open and start the test. We'll need your name and contact information, and also that serial number. So we want to connect all those 3 things because we need to give you all that information to give you a report. And I'll mention again later, but there are some optional questions. If you want to, you can complete those as well. And then you leave it in place. And so we talk about 100 days in this program just because it's easy to remember and it gives you a little bit of wiggle room. We ideally want a minimum of 91 days. So we talk about 100 because we know human nature. So we always forget things. So that'll give you a few days to forget. And then hopefully we'll get the minimum of the 91 days period. And then at the end of the testing period, we have a mass collection. So for 1 week, you have 2 locations that you can drop the detectors off. And this means that you do not have to pay any shipping costs. So the detectors do need to be analyzed by a lab. And so we need to mail this back to the lab. So we'll cover the cost of shipping for you as participating in this program. If you are away that week, or you just can't drop it off during the week for whatever reason, no worries, you can still mail the detector back. And so the instructions will be on the outside of the, on the instruction sheet. So you can mail it back, and it's really just throw in an envelope, put the address on, and it's $1.94 stamp. So it's not super expensive, and it's really still much cheaper than if you have to go and buy the test yourself. Okay, so that's kind of an overview of the program. So now let's go back to, you've just picked up your detector, you get to your house and you're trying to figure out where to put this in place. And so I want you to just think of your home, think of it in levels. So the first basement or your ground contact level, think about a room in that, in your home that you spend 4 hours a day or more in. And if you, like a bedroom or a home office or a family room, so if you have a room in your basement where you do that, then you would put the detector there. If you don't have a room in your basement that you spend 4 hours a day or more, maybe you only store things there, or you just don't use your basement, then think of the next level up. So your main floor, again, think of a bedroom, a home office, a family room, and think about where to put the detector in that room. And then once you've picked your room, pick a location in that room. So on your instructions, there's all sorts of measurements, and these are because Health Canada, in the great science-minded people that they are, have given very detailed instructions. But don't have any fear. If you can't find something that exactly meets all those measurements, they have been, and we've been working with them to do research on the fact that it actually, you can get a really good reading even if your detector varies from this. So there's just a couple key things that will tell you. One, place it at least a meter away from the window. So keep it away from a window and think about maybe more of an interior wall. And don't put it close to an exterior wall. So those are kind of the, oh, and don't put it on the floor. So those are sort of some key things to think about. It away from a window and up off the floor are the real key things. So you could even hang it from the ceiling, or you can just tape it and hang it on the wall with a piece of string if you want. There is a little bit of a holder on it. So you could tie a string around that and hang it on the wall, and that would be fine. It's not part of the official instructions yet. We're waiting for Health Canada to change it, but it will be coming out. So it's kind of like a little extra tidbit you get from participating in the program. So it is funny. I get a lot of phone calls from people. I'm standing in my room, in my house, and I'm trying to figure out where to put my detector. So really my key thing is don't stress too much. Put it in the breathing zone. So kind of on a table, between a table and a shelf, sort of in the space that you would use that room. If you're sitting, think about sort of a shelf beside your desk. If it's a fitness room or something, or a place where you stand all the time, you could put it upwards. But really, even we've had people who the detectors have fallen on the floor or they've got moved and they still got an accurate test. So no worries there. Okay, so there's some guidance, some ideas of some good places that you can put it. We tried to give you some ideas that you could visualize in your own home. So you can put it on a shelf or a table or a filing cabinet in your space. All right, and then once you put it in place, we need to know what date you started. So you can log onto the computer and complete the start form. And like I said, give us your name, the date, and the serial number of when you started the test. And we also, so those are the mandatory things that we really need from you. There are some optional questions. We're doing a housing survey just for research. If you want to include those, you can include them, but no sweat if you don't want to, or you're running out of time, no worries. And we also really want to support anybody that isn't computer literate. So if you get on the computer, or if you just feel really uncomfortable with doing things on the computer, our phone numbers, our emails, you can always reach out to us and we can certainly help you complete it. Sometimes different computers do goofy things and people have trouble with filling it out. Again, no worries. Just give us a call and we'll help walk you through this. We have a team of people that are that love to talk to you. So give us a call if you need it. And then Anne-Marie also talked about the quality assurance that we do. And one of the measures we do to make sure that these detectors are accurately testing is we give you 2 tests. So 10% of you or so will get a package that has 2 detectors in it. So you can tell because it's got 2 serial numbers on the outside of the envelope, and then you'll open it up and inside there's 1 paper of instructions, but 2 tests. And so these are part of our quality assurance program, and we ask that you put these side by side. So just keep them, open them at the same time, put them in the same location, and then return them at the same time. And these are part of our quality assurance. They help us with checking to make sure these detectors are measuring consistently. So we take this data and take it back to the lab and confirm with the lab that that the measurements are accurate. So you can help us out by consistently using that. I know it's tempting to give it to a neighbor or to put it on a second floor and measure different locations in your home, but please put them side by side. All right, and then after the 3 months, we talk about 100 days, but really ideally minimum in the 91 days, then you can drop the detector off to the drop-off locations. And again, whether you've got the 1 or the duplicate tests, you can drop them off there. Before you go and drop it off, complete the end survey. You will need the serial number on it. So if you have dropped it off and you forget, you had forgotten to do the end survey, you can always give us a call, and we should have, if you did the start survey, we will have your serial number. So we can give you the serial number, or it's on the envelope. So you can keep the envelope. And we have a spot on the envelope where you can record your start date, your end date, and it already has the serial number on it. So if you keep the envelope until you get a report, then you've got all the key information that we'll need from you. And really all you need to do is drop off the detector to us. Even you don't have to put it in a bag or anything. You could just drop it loose in a box, and Blake will make sure there's a box there for the detectors at both locations. Okay, and then after, it takes a couple months to get the reports from the lab. But you will get an email from the lab with a report. It'll look something like this, and it'll have a number on it. And that number is in becquerels per meter cube, which is how we measure radon. And Anne-Marie was talking about the levels. So if you fix it within 1 year, if it's between if it's above 600, or within 2 years, if it's between 2 and 600. And so that information will come to you in an email, and your number will be on your report. And so we usually will let Blake know that these are coming out, and he can start to tell people, or you can ask your neighbors if they've been getting their report back. We do find that sometimes these go into spam emails. So in a couple months after you've dropped the detector off, you can always reach out to us and check in to see if the lab has started sending out the results. Or you can check your spam folder for radon. If you really just do a quick search on radon, it should come up. Radon Nova is the company that'll send you the detector survey. And then once we have the majority of the results from the project, we will create a community report. And so this will be available it's a really easy to read document that we create kind of a housing graph on the front. So the green houses are representative of homes that tested below 100. The yellow are the detectors that tested 1 to 200, and then red are above 200. And so that data is on the 1-pager. And then we also will provide the information about how many homes tested above 200, how many homes actually were part of the survey in your community. So the first page is very community specific, and then the backside, or the second page, is more general information about building codes in the area, information on how to find a certified professional to reduce your radon levels, and some of the details even that we've put and we've been talking about today are part of the second page. So yeah, and so these are the locations where you can go and pick up your detector. You have each signed up, so we've given a couple boxes, and Blake's been able to distribute them to the locations. And so they've got enough detectors for those on the list. So in your email, you should have had a location listed, either Woodstock office or the St. Thomas office. And so that's where your name is on the list, and it's picking up, you can pick up your detector. Blake, do you have any instructions for them coming into either of these locations?
I don't think anything particular. Yeah, our St. Thomas office, it's a nice new building, and then the Woodstock office is the old jail in Woodstock area. And yeah, our PAs, they're being like, this is new to them as well. So, we just ask that you be patient and kind with them, but we've given them instructions for the boxes and how to distribute them, and also hopefully help you record your serial numbers as well on your detectors, so those don't get lost.
Yeah, perfect. So yeah, when you go into the office, then they will have a list there of the people that pre-registered. And so you can just write the serial number on it. And we are super excited that all 200 detectors have been pre-registered for. So really great group. So make sure you get in and pick up that free detector. If you had to purchase it, it's about $60 or more. So this is a really good cost savings for you. And plus it'll give you peace of mind. Yeah, I see there's a comment about parking. You want to jump in on that?
Yeah, I was going to say, in our Woodstock area, we do also have some construction just at the Woodstock site. So be mindful of that. Yeah, we do have some parking lots in the building. We kind of a little U-shaped parking lot, but then across the road as well, we do have some additional parking. So
perfect. See, it's good to have a team that can support you with all that. Good. And we are really thankful for Blake and the team at both these offices. And so when you go in, make sure you thank them from us for their help with this project. We love to be able to get into local communities, but it does require people to help us out. So it's great to have that. And so this same location where you go pick up your detector, those are the same places that you can drop the detectors off at the end of the project. So in March, the week of the drop-off week, you can go back to, but it actually doesn't matter now. So when you go and return the detector, you can pick either office because they're all going to be shipped back to the lab. So whichever is convenient, you can drop them off at that office, and they'll each have a box there. So I think that's it. Probably no special instructions at this point for the drop off. Hey, Blake. Yeah. Okay. So same as when you go pick it up. Good. All right. And Anne-Marie, was there anything else that I missed as we were going through?
No, people were asking for the name of the warranty. That was all. And now is a good time to ask any questions about health effects or any other. No, I can't see any questions, and no one's in the Q&A.
Right. Yeah. So I don't know, did we mention? I think we did mention you can ask any questions you want. And so yeah, now is the time. If you want to use the Q&A or the chat, you can certainly throw them in there.
Okay, Pam, what happens if the test kit gets moved when you're testing?
Yeah, so this is a good question. We do recommend that once you find a location, you leave it in place. But if it does get moved, your spouse rearranges things or somebody cleans up and moves it, don't worry about it. It can, as long as it's in a good location, you can leave it there. But when you get the report at the end of it, you can trust that it has been a good test. So you can trust the results. We did do research. Even we were getting calls from people who it fell on the floor, fell off the shelf, it went into a basket, even a drawer. We even did research of putting it in various drawers. We don't recommend it, but it has been known to get tucked into a drawer. And even there, the results came out consistent with the detectors that we had placed in other spots of the room. So the good news is that you can have confidence in the results. So we always recommend best practices for the placement, but you can trust the results wherever you get it.
Pam, do the devices have batteries? The test kits have batteries?
No, and in fact, they have no chemicals or anything at all in them. They're just all plastic. So if we recommend you keep it away from your pets, but if it does happen to get, your pet gets it and plays with it, or your children, it won't harm them. And so you don't have to worry about that. And there's no batteries in these detectors.
Great. Okay. Oh, here's another question. I have an HRV unit with an air return on the floor in the basement. Could this be helping to dissipate the gas? This is definitely a you question and not a me question.
Yeah, that's a great question. So it Could, yes, definitely. So heat recovery ventilation, or another name for it, similar unit could be ERV, energy recovery ventilator. These can possibly reduce the radon levels. What they do is they bring fresh air in and they dilute it. So the challenge with them is we don't know how much, so it's probably just a fraction. Some of the measurements have been maybe 30%. It really depends on the home, but but it is it can be declining. So these require maintenance. You need to keep them cleaned. They do get out of balance. And so we don't recommend installing them to fix the radon levels. However, if you have one already installed, we would actually recommend that you balance it. So you get somebody in, make sure it's properly balanced, you get it cleaned and maintained, because if that gets out of balance, it can actually be drawing the radon in. What happens is it takes more air out of the house than it's replacing if it's not cleaned properly. And then it's sort of creating an environment in the home where the house is under negative pressure. So it can actually now be drawing more air in from the ground. So make sure it's properly balanced, but we don't recommend installing it to reduce your radon mitigation in most cases. Sometimes it is something that's useful, but most of the time it's not.
I've had a really great comment come in on the side here. And for those of you who are just on the phone, I'm going to read it out. So Pam, someone asked, is it detecting when it's in the plastic bag, and I've explained that you have to open up the plastic bag. So it comes in a little plastic bag and you need to open that. And as soon as you do, and you take it, then you put it out, then it starts to test. And the way that it tests is it's a passive test. So you don't have to turn it on. There's no on switch. It just sits there. And then the air moves sort of gently through the device. And as the radon gas decays, it kicks off this high energy bit of radiation. And that radiation then actually pits a plastic lining inside. And unfortunately, that radiation, when it's inhaled in, it also does damage to, it's so strong. It's very short, but it goes a very tiny distance, but it has a bit of a kick. And that is the problem in the lungs, is because that kick actually leads to the development of DNA damage. So the same mechanism that causes DNA problems is also manifested on this piece of plastic. And then when it goes back to the lab, they can actually analyze how many pits of plastic. And so it's not rocket science, it's actually radiation science, but it's a very useful way to accurately assess what your exposure is.
Yeah, good.
Great. Good question.
We also, Anne-Marie, do you want to answer a question about other illnesses? Does radon cause things other than lung cancer?
The accurate answer to that question is we don't know. So the reason that we know that radon causes lung cancer is because the Canadians and other people around the world who worked in mines, uranium mines and fluorspar mines, were dying of lung cancer. And so doctors and medical scientists, this is as far back as like the 1880s, they started to notice this. And then by the 1920s and 30s, there was research that was going on to determine why these miners were dying, underground miners were dying. And then they realized it was radon gas. So the body of evidence that's come that tells us that it's carcinogenic is clearly from humans. This is not some speculation like a sweetener or some other color dye that it causes cancer. We know for sure that radon causes cancer. The problem being, though, is that we can't ethically expose people to radon at different levels and then see what else happens. So it's possible that radon is associated with other cancers, and there has been research looking at diseases like leukemia and lymphoma, which sort of makes sense. But at this point in time, we just don't know whether or not radon contributes to other cancers and then other conditions. So people are looking at issues such as COPD, given that this is a lung exposure. Does radon contribute to that? And again, that research is really hard to do. And so the answer to the question is, at this point in time, we don't know.
Right. And so along with that, do you want to just comment about whether people with COPD or asthma might be at higher risk for lung cancer from radon?
Yeah. And again, we don't know. That the answer to that question is quite honestly, it's unclear. The people who may be at increased risk, and the U.S. National Institute for Medicine suggests that children are at higher risk, and that's because they breathe faster, and also their cells are more rapidly dividing. So radiation tends to impact rapidly dividing cells, and ergo children smaller, they have a smaller body to radiation mass, and they breathe faster. So it's possible that children and possibly fetuses are more vulnerable, but again, it's difficult research to do to intentionally expose people or allow people to be exposed to high levels of radiation and then see what happens afterwards. So a lot of this research is really frustrated by the ethics of how to do good research. Yeah, Janet's asked a great question, but do you want to answer the other question, and then I'll answer Janet's question?
Sure. I just actually had one more follow-up question from the
Sure.
health, and that was about pets.
Oh yeah.
So are pets at risk?
Yeah, so pets are mammals, and mammals inhale gases like humans do. And yes, they've done research on dogs. They actually made dogs smoke and be exposed to radon at the same time, because you can do that with dogs. And in the States, they found that dogs do get cancer from radon exposure. They get different kinds, because a dog has a snout. We don't have a snout. So there's different sorts of cancers. And in some cases at Take Action, we get people who call us who say that their animal died of lung cancer. And then we really encourage people, it's rare, but we encourage people to test their home. You know, your animal's inside often for most of the day. And this has been most cats and dogs can develop lung cancer. So we kind of see that as maybe a bit of a red flag. And you might want to test your house as a result.
Yeah, in fact, two of our advocates that have been sharing their stories about radon both have had their dogs die. Yeah, so it's a bit of an
not
indicator.
Common. Lung cancer in animals is not a common condition. So yeah, that is an indicator. Are more older homes more susceptible than new ones? Do you want to take that question, Pam?
Yeah, for sure. We think newer homes actually tend to have higher levels. So any home can have high levels. And in fact, when we have been doing this project, we've been doing this this is our 6th year now. In each community, we do go in, and some of those optional questions that we talked about in the START survey, if you complete it and let us know about your home, we've kind of taken that information and gone to and kind of looked at like what does impact the radon levels. And we can see that all age of homes can have high levels. So it's older homes, newer homes alike can have elevated levels. We are seeing a more prevalence in newer homes. And one things that we're thinking about is that because they're becoming more airtight, so we're tightening up the roofs, we're tightening up the walls and the building envelope basically, but we're not doing the same air tightening to the ground contact. So we are seeing higher levels in newer homes, but really old and new, they can both alike have high levels.
I'm going to ask the question about somebody living near an abandoned uranium mine. Is there a greater chance of radon? Well, I'm going to make some assumptions here, Janet, about your question. So the tailings from uranium mines often still have uranium in them. And the problem with tailings is that they're a bunch of little chunks, and that means they have a lot of surface area. So the tailings around a uranium mine, and often they're placed somewhere near a uranium mine. So those are basically a pretty clear source of radon gas. And there are parts of Canada where unfortunately communities, they've put tailings down and then they've put layers of things over top to try and prevent them from communicating above soil, but that hasn't necessarily worked. So if your home is on top of uranium tailings, yes, that's problematic, but I can tell you that a radon system actually isn't a very effective solution. So some of those places where they've had to deal with homes that are on tailings like Elliott Lake, the radon technology is very helpful and successfully reduces even high levels. So Janet, I'm hoping you're not living on a uranium tailings, but take heed that if you are, it's great that you're testing or near it, and the system will work for you as well.
Yeah, and there's even been, it's not just the tailings, there are some areas in Canada that have just contaminated gravel. So they're just using contaminated backfill, and a radon mitigation system is effective even in those homes. So yeah, we know that there are some mining areas in Southern Ontario, but you're not alone. It could be others. Also, a good question for you, Anne-Marie. What kind of radiation is associated with radon? Alpha, beta, or gamma? Like a trivia question for you.
It's alpha particle radiation is what we're most concerned about here. I mean, it's a very unique kind of radiation. Again, it doesn't travel very far. It's just but it has a high linear energy transformation. So it does pack this punch, but it does not go very far. And part of your skin can stop it, but your lungs have very delicate tissue. So radon exposure skin-wise indoors, we're not concerned about that. And we are more concerned about inhalation and then the very delicate and complex system that is inside of your lungs.
Next question for you. How long do you need to be exposed to radon to be at risk of developing lung cancer?
This is also a very good question. And again, the answer is we don't know, but we have some clues from the uranium miners. So those are people who worked, often 8-10 hours a day in uranium mines. And some of the cohorts show effects as soon as 5 years, but generally over 10 to 15. And people say, oh, well, that's where they worked there all day. But you got to remember, you're living in your home. You're usually sleeping in your house 8 to 10 days or 8 hours a day. So the exposure of somebody at a workplace versus somebody at home. And I mean, it's one of the most interesting conundrums that's happened now is that there's many people's homes with radon levels far greater than what is considered acceptable in a uranium mine now. We learned a lot from these cancer studies and how to regulate uranium mining, which still exists in Canada. And there's a lot of technology there to reduce exposure. So often people's homes will exceed what we consider acceptable regulation-wise for occupational health and safety.
Mm-hmm. Good. Good. And one other common question that we get to in areas, I think most of the community are on municipal water, but if there are some that are on well water, it is possible to have high radon levels in water. But really the first step is to test your air for radon. So this is still the first step. And then after that possibly would be to test the water and deal with the water. But first deal with the air. All right.
I don't see any new questions here. This has been great. Some really interesting questions.
Yeah, good group.
Blake, did you have anything else you wanted to add?
No, not in particular. I'd just like to say thank you so much, guys, for taking the time to spend this with us, and also, to let us participate in the Take Action on Radon program. Like you said, I think we've had some great engagement this evening. Yeah, so thank you.
Yeah, really good.
We'll stick around here for a bit. I think we have 5-6 more minutes. So if someone wants to sit and chat or have a more personal question.
Yeah, we can, or you can always reach out to us as well. I put the slide up back with the pickup location. So again, we will send an email out again after this webinar, just to remind you of where to pick it up. A quick question about open windows. Do open windows help with reducing levels? And yes, they certainly do, but it's often not the way that we recommend mitigating. So another question we often get is, if I test, can I test with windows open? And so really what we recommend is that you test as you live. So if you crack your windows even through the winter, maybe your bedroom, you have a window open for a bit when you sleep at night, that's fine. Just test in your home the way you live, but you might want to put the test in a different part of the house. So that's the only recommendation we have there.
Basement offices and basement bedrooms, those are great places to test.
Yeah.
That's likely where levels are going to be the highest. And then people spend the most time. So yeah, we're not encouraging people to put these in a crawl space. You don't need to know what the worst radon is in your home. You want to know what the average radon is that you're exposed to. So that's, from a public health point of view, that's what it is that we need to understand.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Good. Well, I think that covers most of the questions. And so, yeah, we are happy to answer any of your questions. We do love talking about radon.
Yeah.
And we are really thankful. So thankful, Blake, for welcoming us into your community, helping us connect with the people in Woodstock and St. Thomas. And
Are the kits all gone? Sorry, are the kits all gone already? Have you signed everybody up?
Yeah, they're all signed up. I think we had a couple duplicates, but we have some on the waiting list as well. So those might get filled up. But yeah, otherwise all our kits are signed up for.
Okay. Then we don't want to have people tell other people if there's no kits left. So lucky,
Yes.
lucky everyone who got in on the free tests.
That's right. But you can tell other people to test for radon. So there are places where they can go and purchase them. So you may not want to brag that you got a free one and they're going to have to pay for it. But we do encourage you to share the news and really help us take action and really help us tell people about radon and testing for radon across the country. This is why we do it in a community, because we really love to engage with communities and build radon awareness around specific communities. So tell your neighbors, tell your family members and your friends to test. Good. All right. Well, thanks, Blake. Thanks so much for joining us tonight. Really appreciate your time. Anne-Marie, thanks. It's been fun to do another information session together.
Yeah.
And thank you for all who participated. We really appreciate your time and thanks for joining us tonight. All right. Take care and we'll chat next time sometime. Okay.
Okay. Bye.